Clark thought about it. Good closeout by Kawir. 5 seconds. Clark driving, blocked by Kawir.
You know, you hear one of your players is being mentioned in a letter from members of Congress to the commissioner of the league. You know, how do you handle that?
Again, that's not something we can control. We're not affiliated with those groups, and we try to keep the main thing, and focus on the things that we can.
Stephanie White was caught making a bizarre gesture from the sideline. At the exact moment, Caitlin Clark drove toward the basket and tried to finish a layup for the Indiana Fever. The broadcast cameras had a perfect view of it. White wasn't applauding the effort, wasn't shouting instructions, and wasn't showing the kind of encouragement you would normally expect from a head coach, while her franchise player was battling through contact near the rim. Instead, she dropped both hands sharply toward the floor in a motion that immediately looked strange on camera, almost as though she were imitating or ridiculing the way the possession had just unfolded.
Bro, did y'all see this last night? Boy, this was hilarious last night. So look at this picture right here. Look at this picture right here. This is Stephanie White. Stephanie White was, boy, I tell you, Caitlin Clark probably drives Stephanie White up the wall, boy. So this is Stephanie White. I saw this last night and I thought it was...
Once people started focusing on that moment, the reaction only grew. Fans replayed the footage, slowed it down frame by frame, zoomed in on White's body language, and began sharing the clip everywhere. The more people watched it, the harder it became for many of them to dismiss it as nothing more than some meaningless reaction after a missed opportunity. To a lot of viewers, White appeared to be deliberately expressing frustration with the play, rather than trying to lift Clark back up. Within a matter of hours, the video was circulating all over social media with captions ranging from genuine confusion to outright anger from Fever supporters asking the same question: why would the head coach react that way toward the player carrying so much of the responsibility for this team?
Indiana has been rolling.
Because this narcissist over here will not get out of her own way. Listen, I love when the fans boo Stephanie White, because I've been telling y'all since the beginning of the season. When it comes to coaching, especially for the MVP, Caitlin Clark, the face of the league, she's trash. We all see the biases with Stephanie White. When those fans booed, the fans did the right thing. Don't stop there. Because when you do stuff like that and then you stop, what you accomplished only lasts for a game or two.
Really think about what that means for a moment. Because this is supposed to be the person setting the emotional tone for the entire locker room. A head coach is supposed to become the calmest and most dependable presence when the game gets physical, when shots aren't falling, and when frustration begins creeping into the players on the floor. Yet instead of visibly encouraging her top scorer after a difficult possession, White is caught making a downward motion with her arms that many fans interpreted as her essentially saying, "What was that?" Rather than appearing supportive, the gesture came across to viewers as if she were making fun of Caitlin Clark, the same player who has carried an enormous portion of Indiana's offensive responsibility. And that's what makes the optics so wild. You might expect an impatient coach to show frustration when a reserve player is having an especially rough stretch, but seeing that reaction directed toward the centerpiece of your franchise naturally gets people's attention. Clark is one of the major reasons Indiana continues drawing national interest week after week, and this didn't happen inside a private practice or behind closed doors during a film session. It happened in the middle of live action, inside a packed arena, with television cameras broadcasting every reaction to a national audience.
Does it change the way you coach the game? You ever notice that third quarter, fourth quarter? Does it ever impact the way you coach?
The fans?
Just the atmosphere, the voice that you have to project, any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only time it really does is sometimes in timeouts. You know, really making sure that we get tight and we get in there and making sure that we can project that. I mean, look, when they're on the other end, they act like they don't hear me anyway. Like, I'm used to that. So I was a player too. I did the same thing. No, I mean, I do think, I think that you got to have some signals. You got to have some awareness in dead ball situations of looking over if we're going to try to make some adjustments.
And that's another reason people aren't treating this like one harmless clip. Because there have already been other moments throughout the season where the relationship between Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark has looked tense from the outside. We've seen the two exchanging words on the sideline instead of White simply taking Clark aside and calmly working through the issue away from the spotlight. Back in May, cameras appeared to capture another uncomfortable interaction during Indiana's blowout loss to Portland. Clark was removed from the game early while a rookie guard entered in her place. And Clark could be seen standing near the bench looking visibly irritated, shaking her head and lifting her arms as though she couldn't understand what had just happened. Teammates eventually became involved as the tension around the bench appeared to rise. Whether every detail of that exchange was as dramatic as viewers interpreted it or not, the scene created terrible optics because it looked less like a private correction between coach and star player, and more like a disagreement unfolding for everyone in the arena and everyone watching at home to see. From that point forward, every similar interaction was inevitably going to receive even more attention. White later framed that earlier situation as coaching, explaining that she was challenging a player and demanding a higher level of performance. That's completely normal in professional sports. Coaches are supposed to hold stars accountable, and being the best player on the roster shouldn't mean being immune from criticism. But the question isn't whether Caitlin Clark should ever be corrected. The question is how those corrections are handled. There's a massive difference between talking to somebody calmly during a timeout, explaining what needs to change, and making the conversation productive, compared with creating a scene while the player is still processing what happened on the floor. When Clark was questioned about the situation afterward, she didn't escalate anything. She described it as two competitive people who both wanted to win, and essentially dismissed the idea that there was some major conflict. She defended her coach instead of giving reporters a quote they could use to fuel an even bigger controversy. That response showed tremendous professionalism from Clark, because whatever she may have privately thought about the interaction, she chose not to embarrass her coach publicly when she easily could have turned the entire story into something much larger.
Yeah, she intentionally seeked out the official.
You were backwards to them? Did you know they were there in that moment?
And through the forearm. That too.
Did you know they were there?
No.
Did they give you
really
a
bad.
different explanation of any kind?
No, that's
Give
what I
us
was
the
told.
same
That's what I
explanation.
was told.
What
Yeah.
was your text for the argument?
My tech was for saying that, even though I heard the F-bomb the whole game. My tech was for saying that. Like that's a bad call. That's a bad call. Incidental contact when you're flying out of control, like on it. And I thought her teammates should have come up and talked to her about that as well. Like I think that's really bad. That happens all the time in the game. Officials have to have some awareness in those moments, and it didn't happen.
I presume you plan to appeal that one?
Yes.
He's already appealed.
But that brings us to the issue that keeps bothering fans. They don't always believe the same level of public loyalty is coming back in Clark's direction. This criticism isn't limited to one missed layup or one sideline gesture. There have also been moments involving physical play and officiating where supporters wanted to see Stephanie White immediately and forcefully defend her star. At one point, Clark was assessed a technical foul following contact with an official while disputing a call, only for that technical to later be rescinded after the situation was reviewed. Fans watching in real time wanted White to react with the urgency they see from other coaches when their franchise player feels unfairly treated. Instead, her public response struck some viewers as comparatively restrained. Maybe that was simply White trying to stay composed and avoid saying something that could create another issue with the league. But perception matters in moments like those. Around the WNBA, we've all seen coaches instantly jump in front of microphones when they believe one of their stars has been officiated unfairly or hit too aggressively. When Fever fans compare that type of reaction with what they've sometimes seen from White, they believe there's a noticeable difference in how quickly she appears willing to go to battle publicly for Clark.
Defense. Yes, sir. Push it. Sophie with the lay. Oh, shoot. Bruh. Uh-oh. Oh. Wow. She ain't like that at all. Bro, I need to see a replay, but that was a hard foul. All right. Across the face. Oh, shoot. What? That's almost a clothesline in the air. She didn't come close to hitting hand or ball. That's 100%. That could have been a way worse situation. Like, look at that. Come on now. Look at her leg. Like, she could have really got hurt. Yeah, Sophie wasn't thinking about fighting. Like, let's be real. She wasn't really finna fight. She wasn't making that. She wasn't finna make that move.
Has been upgraded to a flagrant foul penalty 2.
Yeah, I'm like, if this ain't a flagrant 2, why she looking shocked? Why is
And Clark isn't the only player whose situation has caused fans to question that instinct. Sophie Cunningham became part of the same conversation after Dejani Carrington committed a flagrant 2 foul on her and was ejected. The play immediately generated debate because of how hard the contact looked, with commentators and fans describing the foul as dangerous or unnecessary. In that kind of moment, you'd expect supporters of Indiana to be watching their head coach's first comments extremely closely, especially after everything that had already happened earlier in the season. Instead of immediately sounding furious on behalf of Cunningham, however, White's initial post-game comments were considerably more measured, and once again that became the story.
I mean, look, it was a hard foul. I don't think that Dejanay intentionally came out to get her across the neck like she did, but it did happen, and I thought it was the right call. But, you know, one of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck.
White said she didn't believe Carrington had intentionally targeted Cunningham's neck, and talked about Carrington simply competing extremely hard, which many fans interpreted as Stephanie White giving the opposing player the benefit of the doubt before fully defending somebody on her own team. Cunningham later pointed out that White had not gotten a clear look at the replay before offering that assessment publicly. That detail is exactly why the reaction exploded. Put yourself in Cunningham's position. You've just taken a hard hit during a nationally televised game. The opposing player gets thrown out. Social media is already debating whether the contact crossed a line, and then your own coach speaks about the opponent's intent, before apparently getting a proper look at the replay herself. Even if White was only trying to avoid accusing Carrington of intentionally hurting somebody without evidence, the order in which those comments came out created an awful impression for people who already believed she wasn't aggressive enough about publicly protecting her own players.
Health and wellness, our player safety is always a top priority for me. One of the things I pride myself on is my relationships with players. I thought the play got called right. Thankfully, Sophie's okay. Was it egregious? Absolutely. When you have a chance to watch that over and over and over on replay, you can see that. I didn't have that in real time. The hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness, the stuff that's trying to hijack our league will not win. It won't win. We are united. We are connected. We will not be divided. Every day these women put their on the line. Every day. When they go low, we go high. Love will win. Grace will win. Humility will win. And kindness will win. I stand by them. I will always stand by them. Everybody else can go to hell.
To Stephanie White's credit, she later addressed the situation much more forcefully after she had watched the replay repeatedly and after criticism of her original comments had intensified. She described the foul on Cunningham in far stronger terms, calling it egregious, and gave an emotional defense of her relationship with the players inside that locker room. White said she stands with them through wins and losses, talked about concepts like love and grace, and pushed back hard against people questioning whether she truly supports her team. Those later comments matter and deserve to be included when judging the situation, because ignoring them would create an incomplete picture. White clearly wanted everyone to understand that she believes she is completely committed to the players she coaches. But this is where critics continue pushing back. A passionate speech several days after the incident doesn't necessarily change how people interpreted the initial response. In the immediate aftermath, when Cunningham had just been hit and emotions were still high, White sounded much more cautious. And for fans who care about instinctive reactions, that first moment often carries more weight than something said after everybody has watched the replay and had time to think through exactly how to respond.
Really good job of finding a way. Okay, really good job of finding a way. We started to expand that fist and then we came back together. All right, that was really good stuff. Now we know we got a lot of stuff that we got to work on, right? We know that. But being able to come away and withstand what we withstood in that run and to be able to pull together, get some key stops, shot C. Yeah, hell yeah. Great time, so. It wasn't pretty, okay? It wasn't pretty. We still got room for growth, a lot of room for growth, but great job getting a W on the road. You got that 3, 1, 2, 3.
Now, if we being honest, let's just keep it real. We can tell that play was drawn up for Kelsey Mitchell, man. It's just, which is silly, bro. And it's like y'all keep forcing it. They would rather lose a game if they can force it to Kelsey, and we can lose or win by the hands of Kelsey Mitchell. And that's why our team looked the way it has been looking this season.
Now put all these moments beside one another, and you can understand why the latest sideline clip attracted so much attention. Over the course of an entire season, White has repeatedly found herself at the center of viral moments involving her own players, whether it's a heated-looking sideline interaction, a response to a dangerous foul, an officiating controversy, or now an unusual gesture after Caitlin Clark's missed layup. Each individual incident can probably be explained on its own. Coaches get frustrated. Cameras capture expressions without full context. People interpret 5-second clips differently, depending on what they already believe. But when similar moments keep appearing, fans naturally begin connecting them into a larger pattern. And body language absolutely matters inside a professional locker room. Players see when their coach looks disappointed after they make a mistake. They notice whether the first reaction is encouragement or frustration. Something as simple as dropping your hands after a missed shot might seem tiny compared with an actual argument, but small signals can accumulate over months. They're not explosive enough to make a hot microphone compilation, yet everybody sitting on that bench can see them happen, even when the television cameras only catch a fraction of those interactions.
During the game, Caitlin got honored as the WNBA Player of the Year in the ESPYs. Just what does it mean to have her impact so far? I mean, there are a lot of really good players in this league, and she got honored as the best player in the league by the ESPYs.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she continues to get new awards. She continues to break barriers. She continues to do things that we haven't seen before. I mean, you know, obviously you think about the Stewies MVPs of the league, and you know, championship winners, and Asia's MVPs of the league and championship winners, and of course Sue Bird, who was sitting, you know, in the building today. And you know, Caitlin is so fortunate, as well as all these guys, really. I mean, that they don't know anything any different than the WNBA. Right, like they've seen their idols play. They work their asses off to get to where they are, and to be able to be honored, whether it's the ESPYs or whether it's league awards or whether it's All-Star or whatever. I just think they continue to then lead the way for the other young players that are.
What makes the entire discussion even more complicated is the importance Caitlin Clark has to Indiana and to the attention surrounding this team. Clark has been one of the most influential players connected to the Fever, attracting enormous crowds and driving television interest whenever Indiana appears on the schedule. She's also been asked to shoulder a tremendous amount of offensive responsibility whenever the team needs someone to create a shot or generate opportunities for teammates. At the same time, she's dealt with intense physical defense, constant attention from opponents, endless discussion over officiating, and a level of scrutiny few players experience. Through all of it, she has continued showing up and trying to lead Indiana. That's why supporters react so strongly when they believe the coach isn't visibly behind her. Whether or not every viral interpretation is completely fair to Stephanie White, Fever fans see Clark taking contact, dealing with pressure, and carrying expectations every night. So they expect the person running the sideline to leave absolutely no doubt that she's backing her franchise player in those difficult moments.
Stephanie White, Caitlin Clark, little interaction here that seems like Caitlin Clark wasn't too happy with whatever was going on between her and the coaching staff tonight. You got Stephanie White doing the yapping that she does. Caitlin Clark doesn't want to hear it. Physically cringing. Look at this. Physically cringing, looking physically ill. Looking physically ill. Physically ill by whatever Stephanie White's saying. Like, damn, I'm tired of hearing this. But hey. Trying to run away. Stephanie White says, no, get over here. Get over here, CC. Let me talk to you. Don't you walk away from me.
Try looking at the newest clip strictly from Clark's perspective, because that's where the emotional part of the story becomes interesting. Imagine you're attacking the rim, absorbing contact, trying to make something happen for your team, and the possession doesn't finish the way you hoped. After the game, the clip starts circulating online and eventually ends up on your phone. Now you're watching your own head coach reacting on the sideline, dropping her hands toward the floor in a gesture that thousands of fans are interpreting as mockery or disgust. Maybe Clark knows exactly what White meant and sees absolutely nothing wrong with it. Maybe there was context completely invisible to everyone watching television. That's possible. But when a player sees that clip isolated from everything else, what does the gesture communicate? Fans wanted to see White applauding the effort, shouting encouragement, or immediately getting Clark mentally prepared for the next possession. Instead, the footage gives the appearance of a frustrated observer reacting from the stands rather than a head coach visibly reinforcing confidence in the player she's relying on most.
Stop! Fever fans, Caitlin fans, this will never work. Them two being together will never work. If you feel like it will, then you need to stop being delusional. You need to stop being oblivious and all the other things, because it's not. And the main reason it's not is because Stephanie White has all the characteristics of a narcissist. She can clearly see, I need to go right because this will get me to where I need to go. But say, nah, I'm gonna go left. I'm gonna go this way. Like, it makes no sense. Fans, it's okay. You don't have to keep being nice when somebody else is not being nice.
And that's why people keep returning to the same word, pattern. If this were the first awkward moment involving White and one of her top players, it probably disappears after a few hours online. But supporters remember the Portland sideline exchange from May. They remember the questions surrounding Clark's technical foul before it was overturned. They remember White's first reaction to the flagrant foul on Cunningham and how her tone changed after she watched the replay and the criticism intensified. Now they have another sideline clip to add to that list. Whether those incidents actually reflect a deeper problem inside the Fever locker room is something only the people inside that locker room can truly answer. But the perception has clearly become difficult to ignore. Team morale isn't tested when you're cruising through an easy victory and everybody's enjoying themselves. It's tested when somebody misses an important shot, takes a hard foul, gets frustrated with an official, or suffers through a difficult road loss. Those are the moments when players learn exactly how their coach responds when things aren't comfortable. And if fans believe Caitlin Clark, one of the most valuable players to this franchise, isn't consistently receiving visible support in those moments, then they're naturally going to wonder what that communicates to every other player sitting alongside her on the bench.
Stephanie White, I've been a defender, the coach of the Fever. Get her out of there. Get her out of there. Fire her ass today. I don't want her back on that bench. Stop defending the other players. Oh, she plays hard, DJ. That's just her being her. You see Caitlin in the press conference almost cover her ears and her eyes. Defend your players. First of all, you're wrong. It was a dirty play. She's gone. But when do you ever see in like the NBA, a coach not defend their own players? She hasn't done it with Caitlin when Caitlin got punched in the throat. She didn't do it. I don't care if you agree with it or not. You're wrong, but it starts to make me think you care more about the overlying social issues and not pissing off other people in the league and saying men can play in the league because she's one of those players. Coaches, when asked, always is taking the far left side of it. This isn't politics. Your player got assaulted. Defend your player in the press conference. Be like, yeah, that was a dirty play. She should have hit the showers. She acts like she's the coach of the other team. I don't care if she's the best X's and O's when she's not. Get her the hell out of there. Either defend your players again.
There's also a much larger issue here involving trust. Because the relationship between a basketball coach and her players depends heavily on what happens immediately after mistakes. Players have to believe that being corrected isn't the same thing as being humiliated and that their coach can demand better basketball without making them feel publicly abandoned when something goes wrong. Even a gesture that lasts only a second can create a completely different impression once television cameras isolate it and social media turns it into a replay viewed hundreds of thousands of times. And that doesn't affect only Caitlin Clark. Teammates see how the highest profile player on the roster is treated and form their own conclusions about what happens when they're the ones struggling. Sophie Cunningham's situation already added fuel to that conversation. Clark, meanwhile, has repeatedly avoided publicly attacking White and has defended the relationship whenever reporters have tried to frame the two as being at war. That's why many supporters believe she deserves equally unmistakable backing from the sideline. Maybe Stephanie White never intended the gesture after that layup as mockery at all. Maybe she was reacting to something else entirely in the possession. But once the footage is circulating without that context, viewers judge what they can actually see. And a large number of Fever fans have already decided what they believe that reaction looked like. In their eyes, after everything Clark has done for Indiana and all the pressure she's carried throughout the season, they wanted to see her head coach lifting her up after the miss, not dropping her hands in frustration while the cameras were watching.